Welcome to the BCAM Podcast, presented by Blast Athletics. My name is Michael Massucci, author of Elite Journey books and BCAM board member. My co-host is Coach Dan Young, the Executive Director of BCAM. On this podcast, we bring in leaders to share insights for the betterment of our game. Our vision is that every team across the state of Michigan has a great coach. We're so excited to have former varsity basketball coach and current author Kevin Wolma join us today. Coach, welcome to the BCAM Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to be here.
Coach, we're doing a little research on you, and we're so excited to get into it, the book, The Epic Journey here, and find out just what it takes to have an epic season. But before that, could you tell us a little bit about your basketball journey? What were the steps that brought you to being an author, being an administrator at Hope College, where you're at now, so our listeners can kind of, trace your steps, so to speak?
Yeah, I think I always wanted to coach. It was something even in high school. I remember just getting taken out of games, sitting on the bench, looking at my coach at Granville, Tom Briggs, and being just like, man, I kind of want to do that someday. And so I always knew coaching and teaching would be my path. Went to Alma College, got injured there, so never really got a chance to play. So I started coaching right away. And my RA at the time at Alma was Jeff Smith, who's the associate head coach at Oakland. And him and I just started coaching just about everything together, whether it was middle school girls at Fulton Middleton to volunteer assistant at Shepherd High School to being at Alma High School. And so I got quite a bit of coaching experience while I was in college, helped out the college program a little bit with Bob Eldridge, and was very fortunate. My first year out of college, I coached freshman basketball at Roscommon High School and moved back to the Grand Rapids area where I grew up in Granville, and got a teaching job at Hudsonville. But it just so happened that the Caledonia varsity job was open late in the summer. They went through a couple of coaching searches. Neither time a coach came to the forefront. And so Tom Burrell, who was a football coach at the time at Caledonia, kind of reached out to me and said, hey, you'd like a crack at this? And of course, you're young and eager and you think you can do it all. But I said, sure, I'll do it. Huge learning experience, had 3 years of varsity coaching at Caledonia High School while I was teaching at Hudsonville. And then the Hudsonville job came open, did that for another 6 years. And so I have 9 years of varsity coaching experience along with a bunch of other sub-varsity stuff over the years. And had some kids, and then took a little break from varsity coaching. And then in 2011, I became the athletic director at Hudsonville. Did that for 10 years, got 25 years of experience in, and then was looking for something to kind of fulfill my purpose of just impacting people. And Hope College is a great place. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to land a job here at Hope College, where now I'm the assistant athletic director. Where I serve a bunch of teams and just basically love on kids while I'm here. So super fortunate to be in the position I'm in, and super fortunate to have the experiences that I had leading up to this. Basketball has always been a huge passion of mine and still continues to be to this day.
That's great. What a fun basketball story. One thing that when coaches get talking, they find all these links, and so the associate head coach at Oakland, Jeff Smith, is a good friend of Dan Young and mine, and he's a mentor to our producer, my youngest son Jake, who happens to be a manager at OU.
Oh,
So
awesome. Small world.
if you're a coach in Michigan and you go to clinics and you study the game, I'm sure you're going to run across Jeff Smith, because he's quite a coach and a great guy. So it's good to see that connection. So on that journey, along with meeting great men like Jeff Smith, can you share with us some other mentors that, you mentioned your varsity coach. We try to pack a lot of great people in our coaches' lives at BCAM because you're only as good as who you associate with. So tell us a little bit about those mentors that meant so much to you, either when you were young or as a young coach, or whether even now as you're learning to be an author and a presenter and somebody who has a broader message than just basketball?
Yeah, for sure. I was young. I was 23 years old when I got the varsity coaching position at Caledonia. So I didn't really, grow up with, being a JV coach or a freshman coach in a system and kind of growing into a system and learning from a successful varsity coach. But there's one guy that really comes to the forefront when I talk about my journey as a varsity coach, and that's Mark Worley at Holland. For some reason, we connected back then, and I just learned a lot from him. From a technical aspect, X's and O's of the game adjustments. He was just really good to me, as kind of a young coach in the area.
Kind
And
of a
so
natural
he's the
mentor. Yeah, a
yeah,
natural
yeah,
mentor.
for sure, and he was one guy, and I guess if there's somebody else too, ironically, it was Glenn Van Wieren. I mean, Glenn at Hope, I'm at Caledonia. He calls me up one day and just says, "Hey, welcome to the coaching community in Grand Rapids. How can I be of assistance or help you?"
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, "Well, this guy wants one of my players," but then I come to find out just how genuine and authentic he is, and I really learned from him just from that, like what it means to be a genuine, authentic leader and how important that is in the lives of our student athletes. And he was somebody from that moment on, we would connect all the time. I mean, I did have 6 players that went to him in 6 straight years. So there was obviously a relationship built around that. But just in general, I thought he was just the human being I needed in my life to learn what it means to like really impact people and make sure that the player or the person is always more important than the player.
What a great mentor to have, Len Van Wieren, the best.
So I'd like to just pause right there and talk about Coach Warren for a second. And Danielle, Coach Young, I'd like you to weigh in too, because I know you have a relationship with him. So our coaches, both veterans and aspiring, they need exemplars. What made Coach, and you talked a little bit about it, Kevin. What made Coach Van Wieren stand out, and then not only be a great coach, but a great mentor?
Yeah, I mean, he was just true to who he is. One of the things that I always ask people when I'm in doing a leadership retreat or I'm talking to coaches is like, what do you stand for? That's like the first question I ask. Like, what do you stand for? Because you can't lead others until you actually can lead yourself. And I just felt like Glenn was that person who was just so rooted in his values that it just came out. And the thing I really learned about him is like he had this innate ability to make you feel like you were the most important person in the room when he was talking to you.
There it is.
And I
There it is.
just thought that was just such a wonderful gift and not easy to do. Um, but he did it because he loved people. He knew how to build relationships. As soon as he met you, he remembered your name. He always, with me would ask me about my wife and my kids. And, he just never forgot those things. And so just having that personal connection and being so intentional were just characteristics that I just wanted to model, that he was able to show.
Coach, you want to weigh in on that real quick before we get back to
Sure.
Kevin's journey?
Met Coach when he recruited Mark Ray when I was coaching at Canton High School. But I really got to know him. He's when I first joined BCAM's board, he was the college rep for our board of directors, and really got to know him through that. And then the 4 years where Mark was there, I went to the banquet. It's one of the most entertaining, fun banquets I've ever been to. He had a unique story about every single player that made you laugh. And he knew you just felt the love in the room. And he was an outstanding coach. I mean, he had the full package, and I just you feel better when you talk to him and you walk away and you say, boy, you just really love him. And so that's really cool that he was one of your guys as well. And I just think he's great.
Yeah, Interesting that you say that, like, he could tell a story about each player, and you can't do that unless you really develop a relationship with your
Mhm.
players. Um, and he did that. Like, he just knew something about everyone because he would ask the right questions and he would ask deep questions, and it was never superficial with him. It was always this authentic leadership that I just
Mhm.
appreciated.
Yep. Yep.
That's beautiful. There's a probably a little bit of a fable, but a story where a young kid asked Aristotle, "How do you build a great society?" And Aristotle said, "Look at the kalan, meaning the exemplar or the great one, and then just do what he does." And that's why we have people like, Coach Van Weir. We just, we got to be ourselves, like you mentioned, be authentic. But geez, boy, can we learn from some people like that? So thank you both for sharing that. So, Coach Wolma, you wrote this book. What inspired you to write, epic and to tell stories about basketball and larger lessons in life that may inspire coaches or players or parents or athletic directors to raise up the care dial a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long time in the coming, to be honest with you. I mean, I've been thinking about this book for years. Ever since I've been on this kind of unique leadership journey of like what actually works, and is what actually works the same thing that society is telling us? And the answer to that is no. Society is just all about like self-recognition. I mean, we're seeing that right now is everybody's committing to this, that, and the other place and using social media and all of that. And there's just got to be more. And so really my first case study was John Beeline at Michigan. I mean, I felt like he was a guy that truly cared about his players, was rooted in values, and lived through those values every single day. One of our former players at Hudsonville was a walk on there, Brent Hibbets. And I would often talk to him and I say, "Is this for real? Is this for real?" And he's like, "Yeah, every day. Every day, one of those values gets brought up into some sort of conversation." So then it made me think about the significance of values and where that comes into play into coaching. There as an AD, there was never a time where I would interview a coach where the coach wouldn't say something to the effect of like, "I want this job because I want to give back to the sport that I love, or I want to make a difference in somebody's life." And yet, that's the correct answer, and that's awesome. But then when they get in the real thick of it and they lose 5 games in a row, they seem to be a little bit different of a person than they were before. And again, because society is just hounding us with, what success really looks like. And um, so I just started like just studying different coaches. I mean, my favorite coach right now in America is Buzz Williams. If you see what he does with his guys and with his teams and how he cares for them and how he uses classroom sessions in order to teach not just basketball, but life is really cool. And this is a guy that makes millions of dollars, and he's really looked upon whether he wins or loses. I mean, that's his job, but yet he has a boot camp in the summer where he just spends time just creating a standard and what that standard of excellence looks like and how we live into it. I had the great opportunity to go down to Vanderbilt last year, and I spent 2 days with Tim Corbin, with their baseball program. And so I'm sitting in an actual classroom with his guys, and to see the guys like totally engaged. And these again are, you know, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old guys. A lot of them are getting paid a lot of money in NIL. A lot of them are there. They're going to get drafted, but yet they are so consumed with the information of how to be a better man and how that allows you to be a better teammate and how that helps you with the process of then becoming the most successful program possible. After I was in the classroom at Tim Corbin, I was kind of walking around the hallways and I ran into one of their players and we were just talking. And I said, "What brought you to Vanderbilt?" Because he was a transfer. And he goes, "Coach Corbin's classroom. That's the reason why he went there." He says,
Oh,
I want to be a better man." He goes, "There's more to this than just a Division I baseball player. I want to be a better man." And I've heard of that's what happens when you come here to Vanderbilt. And so when you hear stories of like that in the college level, it's like they're asking for this. They want this. They want to be poured into as human beings. And this isn't like soft coaching. This is actually developing people who are going to be great teammates and people who you want to go to battle. And so that was the idea behind Epic. I mean, Epic is a fictional story, but yet it's based on a lot of true events, a lot of events that I've seen as a coach or an athletic director, things that I've heard or read about in other maybe autobiographies and stories. One person that was another like coaching mentor in a different way. I learned a lot of X's and O's was Don Meyer. He had clinics all around the country and he used to come to Michigan quite often. And he got in that car accident. And so the car accident in the book is actually based off of Don Meyer's kind of story. So a lot of true events that occur in there that just all kind of weave together. And then I've been just kind of tinkering with some of the ideas, character development and all of that. And then June 1, I started writing and it only took me 6 weeks to write.
Wow.
Took a lot longer to edit than it did actually to write because I just felt like all the things that I wanted to capture and be able to say just worked, in the book. So, pretty excited about it just because I feel like it's almost like a coaching journey for me, seeing it through my eyes, seeing it through other eyes, and then also having the lens of an administrator and an athletic director too.
So Coach Young was so excited to speak with you, to have you on the podcast. Coach, do you want to talk a little bit about what drew Coach Wolma to you, to the BCAM podcast, and share a little bit of insights and give Coach a little bit of, or maybe give our audience a little bit of peek inside the book a little bit?
Sure. For those of you, it's called Epic, the season that changed lives forever. And it starts, and I just want to read one part here. What you just talked about with classroom sessions. It says, if you were a coach or a leader of people, you might be wondering how these classroom sessions could work in your space. Maybe you're thinking, I'm not a teacher. That's not my strength. Or maybe like the coach in the book, you don't have the time to dedicate to classroom sessions. And then it goes on to say it could be 5 minutes, 30 minutes once a week. It could be 5 minutes every day before or after practice. But I do know this, and this is Kevin Wolma, it matters. And that really stuck with me. Like, this really resonates with coaching and surviving and staying in this profession in the world we're in today, is the pressure to win and the pressure to have great stats and compare yourself to other people. It's just it sucks the life out of people, and so many coaches are stepping away, and they're stepping away before they've even kind of gotten through the good times. They don't even get to the good times, meaning like you're more experienced, you understand relationships are as important as anything. And the book just resonated, and it there's so many of the stories, just if you've coached for a long time or even for 5 or 6 years, it will totally help you put things in perspective. I thought it was so well written. It was very easy to read, and it hit on so many things as far as BlackBerry moments. I thought that was really cool. Um, Enjoying this moment and appreciating this situation, whatever it may be. You talked about Ernie Johnson, I believe, in a story that he said, but I thought it was a phenomenal book. And I said, Mike, we've got to get Kevin on to share the book. And then we're going to try to share this to coaches in some way, shape or form. So I just think it's, and then you end with, uh, here's your reminder: when you make time to invest in people, you are not just making a difference in their lives, but you are making the world a better place. Never underestimate your influence. You matter. Doesn't get any better. Can you speak on that?
Yeah. I mean, again, learned this from Glenn Van Weeren, but you never know the difference you make in the lives of people until sometimes 20 years later, and we get so caught up in the minutia of day to day, and we get so fixated on things that we can't control that, I just want to bring a light to coaches and say, like, you matter. Like, you have a platform to change lives forever. And you can never underestimate that power that you have and the way that you can invest in young people. I mean, they want it. I mean, that's the thing that I've just have seen through my experience with coaching, again, administration, and now even being here at Hope College. Like, these student athletes want to be poured into, and they want to be poured into more than just X's and O's. Um, so what an incredible platform coaches have. Like, what an awesome opportunity that they have. And I just want to encourage coaches that you do matter. And the student athletes that are in front of you every single day are looking to you, um, and they want to be poured into.
So, Coach,
Wonderful.
without giving the story away, take us inside the plot line and the conflict. And what's like maybe the first thing or just one thing the coach does different to change the trajectory of his season and perhaps his career?
It's basically a little bit what we've just been talking about, but they start the season, expectations are super high, and they just kind of go on a losing streak and can't find any consistency. This was a year it was supposed to happen, and so the AD brings the coach into the office after another loss and really just questions them on the question that I started with is like, "Hey, coach, what do you stand for? Because when I hired you, these are the things that you talked about. Your first couple years of coaching, these are the things that you did. And now you just seem like a different person." And so that's where the conflict kind of arises. And then she, the athletic director, just challenges the coach and says, I really want you to establish what your program stands for and then live through that for the rest of the year. And you're going to do that by every Monday. You're going to have a classroom session and you're going to choose topics that are not only important to your team, but are important in building young men of character. So that's kind of where it started. That's where the conflict arose. And that was kind of the solution or challenge to it. And then it's just the journey that goes along the way. And it doesn't always go smooth at first. And there's ups and downs, just like we would
Absolutely.
experience, so that's kind of the picture I wanted to be able to paint. And then, the end of the story, I think kind of just says it all. And was probably one of the most fun chapters I wrote. And actually the chapter where they're all in a room, just kind of like, this is who we are as people. They do a hero hardship and highlight type of activity.
Oh,
And
that was great. That was really
yeah,
cool.
and it helped build the character formation, but it also, I've seen it happen. Coach Mitch does that here. And so I've just seen the power of that and the vulnerability that can take place when you're willing to be able to share some of the hard things that are going on in your life. And it just builds more connection. And we know the most connected teams are going to be the best teams.
All right. I think
So good.
one of the maybe if you're reading that, it could be a thing you miss. And one thing that coach had was a really good boss, right? Like that said, hey, this isn't what we hired you for. Well, not every coach has that, or they might have a good boss that just isn't, to that level of coaching. So therein lies what we've been preaching at BCAM, Coach Young. Find mentors. Like I think coaches are at their worst when, the pressure's on, their sleep is low, their nutrition is poor, they're up late, up early, like they're just on a negative spiral. So someone has to get them out of that vicious spiral. And oftentimes they have to have that self-awareness that they're in that. So who's my first call? They got to have a
Right.
first call, right? Sometimes they're blessed to have an assistant, maybe like your character, an AD. But can you guys both, Coach Young, and Coach Wolma, speak to that? Who's about establishing that those associates, those first people that you can call when times are tough?
When you get that first bad email, tough email, attacking your character, attacking everything about you as a person, that blows you back, and you need support in that situation. We've said it over and over to our aspiring head coaches academy, and we've also tried to be mentors for anyone in our organization, but especially the younger coaches. Is that when you first go through that, you need to talk to someone who's been through it and understand that let's think about what you're doing and how you're doing it and da 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 da, and to help them through it. You need to have support in your corner and feel like you can get through those times, because sometimes they're just tough times. And if you get through them, it makes you stronger, makes you a little more wise. And as you grow, maybe you learn also about yourself a little bit on how you can do things differently. So, Kevin?
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. And I will say this too, like in a high school setting, it's great to have mentors in the basketball coaching world. And I know BCAM is an awesome resource for that, but utilize your coaches in your own building sometimes too, because they might be the most accessible. I know for me, I would go to our football coach, at Hudsonville. I mean, Dave Durham's a Hall of Fame coach. And so him or one of his assistants, Dave Lidgard or Dave Nord. I mean, if something were to happen like an email, and I haven't experienced this before as a young coach, I would go to these guys and be like, how do I handle this? How do I deal with this? What do I say in reply? And do I just pick up the phone and talk to them? I mean, what does this look like? And I just thought that was super helpful, because sometimes they understand the community that you're in better than maybe a coach from the outside. So I would say, on top of utilizing the resources that you have at BCAM, like, don't be afraid to use some of the veteran coaches that you have in your own building. I feel like there's a lack of collaboration sometimes within a high school setting. Like, everybody's siloed in their sport, and we need to get out of that a little bit, because there's so many good things that you can share with each other.
That's a great point. That's
Yeah,
a great point. Thank you.
I think there's a sentiment that if you show some vulnerability, that you're, less than a great coach or less than an excellent coach. And I think one of the things we want our listeners to know is that every great coach has been criticized. It may have looked differently. Some might get it in the newspaper, some might get it in emails, some might get the whispers behind their back. But every coach has been criticized, and to share those experiences, to let everybody, like to get out of, you use the word silo, I think, to get out of the silo and have, like, to share your burden and get some insights, I think is a good way to go forward, because success, no one makes it alone. No one makes it alone in a success story. And so, and coaches love helping coaches. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Before we close, Coach, I want to give you an opportunity to share some of those EPIC values. EPICS is a acronym, and I just want maybe you to share with our listeners a little bit about that acronym and why, maybe why you chose those words, and why they're so important to you, because I think they're really special words.
Yeah, I mean, I chose epic. I mean, I literally, it was one of those crazy things where I put the words together and it spelled epic. That was one of the things in the book I wasn't really planning on, and it ended up happening. It ended up being the title of the book. Yeah. But instead of sharing those, I just want to say this, that the root of the story here is like finding what you stand for. And that's the question I want to throw to all the coaches, that are out there is like, what does your program stand for? And what are those inherited values that you can live by every day? And then once you determine that, how do you define them? And so in the book, that's exactly what I did is they went through the process of like, what do you want to stand for? And it's kind of a collective thing with the group too, with the players, to be able to, figure out what those values are and what are those important things that are there. And so that was kind of the idea behind it. Um, because once you have that, I feel like then you establish maybe what your classroom sessions can look like. When you establish your values and what you want to stand for, then that falls into place. And so it gives you something that you can talk about on those Mondays that you can start with and then kind of build from there as things happen within the program and things that happen on Tuesday night that maybe you can capture in the next one and just kind of build on that. So that was the idea behind it was to just really to be able to show coaches like this is the process of kind of finding what you stand for. And then the next step is how do you live through that? And a part of that too is making sure that you're defining that so everybody understands the same definition. I mean, we could use like an epic C is for courage. We could look at courage all a little bit differently. And, you know, we want to have this unified, definition for it for our program and what that actually looks like. And I think that's super helpful, to be able to go through that exercise. A lot of times people put these acronyms on their shirts and that's what it ends up being is just an acronym on a shirt. And they never really talk about it. They never really define it. They never really model it to make it actually something that they live through.
Hmm. Great. So good. Any coach who would read this would just really enjoy it and could self-reflect on what they do and improve their program. Uh, so it's just we thank you for writing it, and we're going to promote it and help you get it out there to as many coaches as we can.
Appreciate that.
He's a very skilled interviewer. He noticed he didn't take the bait. He left a tease right there. He wants the listeners to go buy it so they can find out what EPIC stands for. Very good. Don't think I didn't catch that one. So
I gave you one of them. I gave you one of them.
Right. No, fair point. So, Coach Young, before I ask the final question, your thoughts on bringing, Coach Wolma into the BCAM family, onto the podcast. I know your mission really, our mission here is like, we think coaching is really hard and we want to help coaches in every facet we can. And so I think Coach Young, this fits with our mission, doesn't it, here at BCAM?
So Kevin, your reputation as a coach, an administrator, and a leader is exactly the type of example that we would want to share with other people. We just can't thank you enough for coming on today. Your book is amazing. Just, I think that people will really get a lot out of it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys having me on, talking about
you're not
the book.
done yet. We got one more question for you.
Okay,
we asked this of everybody. And then we're going to let you go. And I will say this to make it a fair point. You've kind of answered a lot of this throughout the questions, but I want to ask this: if you, Coach, were to give an aspiring coach who wants to have a long, distinguished career some advice, what would that advice be?
Well, I think it first starts with just finding out who you stand for first, and then from there, establishing what the standard is of your program, and then how are you going to find and model that. But then third, and probably the most important, like control the controllables. It's really hard to do. And I understand that. I've been through it. I've seen it. It's really hard to do. But when you can truly put the person greater than the player, you can't go wrong. Like I was just talking to a assistant coaching candidate today, and we got talking about philosophically a little bit about this. And he was saying, how do you not get stale in your coaching, or stale and like, you're already, a pretty good athletic program, top 20 in the country at Hope, how do you not just get stale and stagnant in the moment? And I said, you'll never get stagnant in the moment when your focus is on people. Like when your focus is on the person, that can never get stagnant because relationships are hard and they take effort and time. And there's you never really master it and you just keep on working at it. And so when the person becomes for the player and you focus on that, I just think things take care of themselves. You're going to have bad days. You're going to go through adversity, but that's where your value system comes in and can help you be able to get through some of those, hard, adverse situations.
That's a great one to end on. Coach Wolma, thank you for joining the BCAM podcast.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you having me on.
The BCAM Podcast is proudly sponsored by Blast Athletics, the official fundraising and team management partner of the Basketball Coaches Association of Michigan. At Blast, they believe coaches, athletes, and communities succeed when fundraising is simple and communication is seamless. That's why BCAM has partnered with Blast to give our Michigan basketball programs the tools they need to raise more, engage more, and keep their teams connected. Learn more at blastathletics.com. Well, what an enjoyable conversation. I mean, one of the things that you can always tell about somebody is if they're on mission. And Kevin Wolma is on mission. He's had a real distinguished career in coaching and administration, and he's using those life experiences for a broader message. And you can kind of feel his heart when he speaks, and it's really an encouragement. And I love that we can help him sell those books if we can. So to our listeners, give it a shot and find out what an epic season's all about. Coach Young, your thoughts?
I love the book starts with expectations and how that can really wear at us and really make things harder in our own mind, both as players and as coaches. And then it goes right into what do we stand for? What do we stand for as a team, as a program? What do we stand for right now? And then building relationships, getting to know our players and their lives and helping them through that. And then, all those lessons learned through the great game of basketball. This book is, it's not about selling books. Mike, you didn't write any of your books to sell, to make $1 million. You wrote it to make an impact, and your books.
I'm open to that, Dan.
Yeah, you're hoping.
I'm very open to selling $1 million, but that's not the reason.
Yeah, but you made an impact with. I still think of the things that when I read your book, I would share those with my sons, and they were probably middle school, high school, coming up, and being curious. Asking questions. That was a big part of your book. I thought it was great. And in this one, what do you stand for? And building relationships with your players and going at it together and not letting the expectations rip you apart. So a lot of great lessons. And it was just fun to talk to Kevin, and his book's amazing.
That's great. And so, Coach, it's February. That means the state tournament's right around the corner. What are your thoughts on getting our coaches at BCAM ready for the state tournament? And how about some words of encouragement for all our great coaches, both on the men's side and the women's side? The women's will be following shortly after.
I wrote in the newsletter, February, the heart of the season, heart. And it's everything kind of amps up, right? And but that's when your relationships really take your strength of the foundation you've built as a team, as a program, will thrive. So for all the coaches out there, all the work you've done from day one, from summertime to day one of practice to now, all that work's going to come out when the boiling water hits. And so best of luck to you. It's the best time of the year. It's the end of the year, playoff time, and trying to get a little bit better and finish strong. And so can't wait to get out there and watch games and be pulling for you as we get to the end of the season.
That's true. Well said. Well said. So we want to thank all of our listeners, that the great feedback that we're getting. Love the emails. Go ahead and rate us a 5-star. Also encourage you to follow us on our social media accounts. Coach Young mentioned us, our own little, we're starting our BCAM Podcast proper accounts, and those are just starting. So we're just trying to snowball our followers. So all of you coaches out there, give us a follow and help us send this message of not only having epic seasons, but just pouring a lot of care into our kids and enjoying the heck out of a great profession. Wishing you all the best, and we'll see you next month on the BCAM Podcast.